Okay, welcome everybody. Good to have you all here. It is August 31st, and this is your live Zoom gathering with Jamy and Peter Faust. So glad to have you here. Let me just say a word about myself, and then I'll turn it over to Jamy and Peter to introduce themselves. My name is Leslie Nips. I'm your host for the day. I was the director, one of the directors for the last conference, and involved in this one, but taking a different role, letting other people step forward. I'll be presenting there as well on nature constellations. Given Houston, this seems a relevant topic. And it is really good to have you all here. We do expect a few more people to come in the next few minutes. Everybody is muted right now. It's just because on Zoom, if there's lots of ambient noise, it gets kind of noisy. But as long as we stay small, there'll be lots of opportunities to speak up and ask questions directly of Jamy and Peter. And if you're new to Zoom, welcome to someone on the phone. 510, that's Oakland. If you're on iPad or your phone video or a computer, you can control mute and video like Kimberly right now. She has her video off. And you can find the controls for that on your screen. Another really nice function on Zoom, excuse me, is this chat function. You'll see that probably down at the bottom. The nice thing about Zoom is you can kind of do two things at the same time. If Jamy or Peter say something you think is brilliant, you can type in, "That was brilliant." Or if someone you notice and you want to say who's a friend, you can say hello to them. Or see, Karen just demonstrated. And you can ask questions that way as well. Sorry, folks on the phone, you don't have access to chat. We'll give you other opportunities to ask questions. So that's my orientation to Zoom. Let me turn it over to Jamy and Peter. Please just introduce yourselves. Tell us about yourselves, a little bit about your background, and just who you are.
Okay, well, I'll begin, and I may describe a little bit about Peter, and it's not that I'm over.
Go ahead.
Why not? Right, anyway. So Peter and I are first and foremost facilitators of the constellation approach. We are also, I'm a psychotherapist. Peter is also an acupuncturist. And we have also been practicing as energy medicine healers for the past 25 years. We were students and graduates, and we are graduates and teachers at the Barbara Brennan School of Healing for several years. So we bring all of that to our work. We are located just outside of Boston, about 20 minutes outside of Boston, and we have a practice there that houses all of our offerings, and that's basically who we are.
Well, in our office, we've been doing family constellations for about 15 years now, and we've been offering a training program, an immersion program for, I think, 13 of those 15 years. Mm-hmm. And what's really exciting is we just moved into a new office space in March where we do all of our constellations now. It's large enough to house about 20, 25 people in a really nice, intimate space. And we do our training programs there, and we do our public seminars there. So it's just nice to, after all this time, kind of consolidate everything into one space. And our commitment to this work, I think, is pretty clear. I mean, we spent the last several years writing a book. We've been teaching. We've been doing seminars. So this is a real foundation of who we are and what we believe in. And that's really what we're bringing to the conference, is what we believe in and the potential for family constellations, and trying to support the community to grow and to prosper.
Yeah. It's interesting. Every once in a while, in the network, I run into one of your students who are now facilitators. Your students tend to be very passionate about the two of you and the work that you do in your school and your particular approach. So I'm really glad to be getting to know you better and to find out what the special sauce is. So I'm curious, this is a question I've been asking everybody in these calls. What's got you really alive about constellations right now? What are you chewing on, or what seems most relevant to what's alive today? What are you guys working on? What seems most important to you in constellations right now?
Sure. Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that the two things that we're bringing to the conference, we're doing two presentations. The first one is on the soul. And so what really excites us and what we really, really deeply fundamentally believe in is that family constellations can give people an experience of soul consciousness. So, Bert often talks, and we talk about the individual soul, the family soul, and the collective soul. And so what excites us is that the possibility that a constellation can give a person the experience of their own soul nature in relation to another soul. And a constellation is a pathway to do that. Then the other thing that both Jamy and I are very excited about, and we've written about in our book, and we're doing a presentation at the conference on, is the healing the divide between the collective masculine and feminine. Because ultimately, constellations come down to either working with a man or a woman, a male or a female. It's the yin or the yang. I mean, it's in a systemic system anyway. In systemic constellations, systemic family constellations, it's always in relation to the opposite, or not the opposite, but masculine or feminine. And that splitting consciousness certainly is really prevalent in our culture and our society. And if we are to move into a more collective consciousness, an expanded consciousness, there needs to be peace between the masculine and feminine, both external and internal. And constellations offers a pathway for that.
Thank you.
So those are the two things, the soul and the masculine and feminine, that I think that excites us, at least at the time, and we teach and are very passionate about.
Thank you. That's awesome. And as you, everyone hears Jamy and Peter talk, questions are arising for you. Note them for yourself, type them in the chat. I'm going to ask one or two more questions and then turn it over to all of you. So please be starting to note the things that you're curious about from what you hear Jamy and Peter say. So I'm really curious, and this may be putting you on the spot a little bit, but one of the things I've noticed about the word soul is that people mean lots of different things by it. And so I'm curious if you have a story or a constellation with a client recently or over the years where someone had this experience of connecting with their larger soul and what that was like and what difference it made, just to put some meat on the bones. I'd be curious a little bit about that more.
That's a good question. Off the top of my head, I have to think, but we actually have 3 students here from our program. They might actually.
There you go.
They actually have a memory.
Or even from your own life about how constellations helped you do that for yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I'll answer that for sure. I actually write quite a bit about my mother in the chapters on the mother's lineage in the book that we wrote. And after having done a constellation with her, I actually did a constellation with her in the room once as I was practicing something that I needed to teach. But besides that, it was my impression that when I came and bowed to my mother, I actually saw her sitting on a very high pedestal above me. And she was wearing what I would call today like Buddhist robes. And I recognized that I had a very deep soul agreement with my mother as my teacher in this lifetime. That she was beyond the woman that stands there, Joan Margaret McNeil, Terry O. Williams, that she is she just passed this year, but just a small woman and with white hair and little white socks on that she was wearing the day I had done the constellation. But when I opened to something larger and let go of all of my projections and my judgments and my thoughts that I hadn't gotten enough from her, when I started to when I kept surrendering, I saw something that it took me so much by surprise that I was in awe of that vision that, it almost pushed me back, that it was so powerful. It came totally unasked for. It just came on its own.
Yeah. It's interesting. Just the other day, I had a woman who had a very difficult, adult level trauma where she felt really powerless, and getting in touch with her larger soul that could help her through that past experience turned out to be what she needed. So I really appreciate that framework. I noticed here that Kimberly wrote something up here in the chat, and it was a question I had a little bit too, and I'll unmute Kimberly in a second, although she's unvideoed herself. Oh, she seems ready to do it. She said, I see the delineation between masculine and feminine dissolving as gender identity becomes fluid.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the Bay Area, I have a lot of transgender and non-binary clients of ones or different binary or different genderedness. Let me turn it over to Kimberly. You want to turn that into a question for Jamy and Peter and how they work with this bridging the divide?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how is this dissolving of gender identity interfacing with masculine and feminine energy? And because I have stopped seeing it as a duality. I'm stopping dualistic thinking almost everywhere. And I'm just wondering, how are you guys, what's your experience with that?
Well, I think the word duality, letting duality go, is really the key piece, because that's really the bridge. The bridge is that there isn't any difference between us. It's, a soul is ungendered. It's non-gendered. It's not even androgynous. It just doesn't have gender. It has essence. And so I feel that when we're with people in constellations, we're inviting ourselves as facilitators to see their essence. And so that's how I would hold that with you, Kimberly. Does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, I'm so happy to hear you say that, because it seemed like as you were speaking about masculine and feminine, it seemed like it was real. You know what I mean? You were speaking of it as if there is such a thing. And I've just been, I have children who are between 15 and 21, and I don't call anyone anything. I mean, I don't call you he or she, or I don't call you anything until you tell me what to call you, because everyone is discovering this spectrum, right, of everything. So that's why it's so up for me.
Well, I'd like to also say that when that we do, how should I say, in a constellation, we have to start from somewhere. Remember, we'd have to start with a physical representative or somebody that stands in, even if it's a little figurine or a human body. So we would start with that, but that isn't the end. That's the beginning. Okay. Yeah. Did you want to say something?
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting time with these questions. The gender queerness has just brought raised up a whole set of contexts and questions that constellation facilitators not so long ago weren't chewing on. And we have to chew on being male and, having males and females in an embodied world. So it's really a both and kind of a thing. So I appreciate the space you're working in. I can't wait to experience it. Other questions? You can do this, or you can do something in the chat. Other questions? I have other questions, but I do want to give other people an opportunity to ask Jamy and Peter some questions here. Anyone coming up with something? We went right into the hornet's nest with male and female, right? We went right there.
Well, I mean, it's
yeah.
Everybody comes from a mother and father. I mean, what we do after we're born is secondary, and and how we work out our masculine, feminine identity, our gender identity, and our sexuality. That's all part of the soul's journey. That's all part of the path. But we do start with a duality of masculine and feminine. I mean, that is the essence of humanity. And we can use family constellations to explore that and come to peace with it. From my perspective, the whole point of family constellations is coming to peace with where we're in conflict, where the duality exists inside of us. And that's where a constellation can help a person or a group work through the conflicts or the confusion that we all have around our identities and misidentities and perceptions of each other and misperceptions, whatever separates us from masculine and feminine, until we get to that inclusiveness. The whole idea is to move to the oneness, to the inclusiveness, where both are included and there isn't a differentiation. But a constellation allows us to do the path of exploration.
Yeah, yeah. Amongst the particularities of human life and our stories, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
A question that I've had, and I see a few more on the chat that I'll get to in just a second, but I just wanted to ask this because I'm so intrigued. This is a section of sort of healing work that I've heard of, but I haven't had a particular experience in. Your work with Barbara Brennan in the school there, how you've seen that work and constellation work and the synthesis that you experience in your school and what you teach your students, and what the kind of the creative connection between those is.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, very simply, so we view ourselves as human beings as energy bodies. So from the perspective of Barbara Brennan and the energy field model, is that underneath our physical bodies, we're energy beings. We're energy beings consisting of the chakra system and the auric field and the levels of consciousness. And so in our work, when we facilitate family constellations and we work with family constellations and we take people through the program, we first work with the idea that we're energy beings. And so what happens in a constellation is a overlapping of energy fields, and the healing happens in the energy bodies beyond the mental body into the energy field. So there's a transference of energy and a flow of energy between the energy fields. So as healers and energy medicine practitioners, we're aware of that. So we're watching how the bodies are lining up and allowing the energy to move through the body. So we're always in the process of conscious of the facilitation. So you're working with the energy field of the group, the energy field of the individual participants, and the energy fields as they come into alignment. And once they come into alignment, that's when it drops from the mental into the emotional and then finally into the spiritual. Because as energy beings, we're spiritual beings. So we're working towards that level of spirituality or spirit through the energy field. So if you have the awareness of the energy field and you understand it as facilitators, you can work with the energy much more, I shouldn't say more effectively, just it's how we do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, if the two of you think of any like concrete constellation moves that perhaps are a little bit unique to what the two of you do because of this insight, like how you deal with perpetrator victim, that's a classic constellation thing, right? Or an alienated parent and child, an immigrant having lost their land. These are sort of classic constellation contexts. What would be the added piece that you'd be noticing and working with in any one of those specific contexts?
Well, Leslie, we write a little bit about this in our book. We call it Moving into the Vesica Pisces. And it's a standard thought form of the Vesica being two overlapping circles, and it creates a diagram that looks like an almond. But what we're really looking at are when two energy fields overlap, there's actually a transmission of energy that can occur between the two beings in which the energy is overlapping. So whether it's a victim and perpetrator, an aggressive father and the child, a couple who's in conflict, what we notice is that in a constellation, if we allow the two representatives to come toward each other with enough distance, but yet enough overlap of their energy fields, and there's no words for a while, no fixing, no holding hands, no hugging, no kissing, nothing that moves out of the tension, so to speak. But it's palpable if you sit and watch a constellation where two conflicting energies come together, and suddenly we would almost call it like a downloading or transmission of the energy that comes into a place toward reconciliation and healing. And what we can notice is that the whole front of the body, especially the heart chakra of each of the people, and the other chakras start to open and soften and allow, and they're less defended. So they allow that reconciling healing to begin to occur. That's one of the ultimate things that we notice.
I'll just
That's
add
amazing.
to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we follow Bert's work, and it proves really well. You know, the child moves to the parent, the victim moves to the perpetrator, the client moves to their land of immigration. You know, it's always moving back into the field because the trauma or the separation happened in the field. So in order to heal it, you move back into the field. So the client has to move toward the representative, towards the perpetrator. And in that process is when everything happens in the energy body of the individual.
Mm. You're reminding me a little bit of watching some of Hellinger's more recent work, which is similarly very quiet and very slowed down. Maybe different, he's processing it differently possibly, but the same kind of value placed on slowing things down and simplifying. And that's a really helpful frame for me. Thank you, the two energy fields. I really appreciate that. I want to catch up on a little bit of the chat that's been going on here. Kimberly wrote again, you were talking about the soul a little bit earlier. I'm also interested in the idea of soul as a form of duality. And she's wondering what your definition of soul is. And I sort of asked that before, but I didn't really pin you down on a definition, which I imagine it's hard to do.
That's great, Kimberly. Good. I mean, we're going to present this at the conference, but we'll tell you. So we use spirit and soul as the classic definition that is used, that soul is consciousness that's encased in physical form. Spirit is consciousness that is disembodied. So everything around us is spirit. But that which is inside an animal, inside a human being, inside a plant is soul. It's embodied, it's encased. And again, soul is classically defined as immortal, that which cannot die, that which lives on. We also consider it as the repository of all human experience. So when we work and in a constellation, as we're trying to move a person through the levels of consciousness to their spiritual consciousness, where the soul exists, they're moving through the mental body, through the emotional body, through the physical body, and then deep inside is where the soul lives, in the spiritual consciousness of the individual.
Then is that in some ways, I was going to say the ultimate, perhaps there's no such thing as ultimate, but a very, very important version of this bridging the divide?
Absolutely, because
the self and the soul.
Yeah, because healing happens, the deepest healing happens on the spiritual level. And we all know from constellations that these insights come to us. These insights come for the client. They don't come from us, the facilitator. They don't come from the other representatives. I mean, they do. But the deepest insights and the deepest healings happen for the client when they're in the stillness in relationship to the other individual. So the idea, Kimberly, is to help the person get to the soul. So the soul is at once differentiated from the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, but it's also inclusive of all the experiences that a human being has had. The same way the family soul is inclusive of all the experiences the family has had and the family lineage has had. And then the collective soul, the societal soul, is inclusive in the repository of all the experiences of the culture of the society. Does that help?
So when it comes to things like Charlottesville, Houston, climate change, the social issues that are part of the world around us and affect us, and are in their way incomplete, is looking for that connection with the collective soul, if I'm hearing you, some kind of relationship with the collective soul? Or how might you articulate this with respect to contemporary events?
Well, I'll do it I'll share a story from a recent constellation. So,
perfect. Yeah.
So a woman in our program connected with the perpetrator energy that she felt with a masculine person in her life. So we do the constellation, And in the interview, it also happened within her mother's lineage. No surprise there that, that the perpetrator energy also happened in previous generations. So as she went through the constellation and went deeper and deeper into the field of consciousness, she was able to work on her individual soul relationship with the perpetrator. But then as her mother and grandmother were in the field and she could look towards them and move towards them, she could feel the family soul wound of the perpetrator energy and the separation between the masculine and feminine because of the conflict victim-perpetrator. And then at a certain point, she went beyond the personality, beyond the family and the collective, into the much deeper wounding of all the feminine and the split between the masculine and feminine. And so she was you could almost say she was in a dissociative state. She was present in her individual consciousness, but aware of the larger collective wounding and separation and the victim and perpetrator around sexuality. So as she came back out of that, she was able to report it felt so much bigger than just her event, that she felt that she was doing something on a much larger scale of healing.
Yeah. Which I suspect the other people in the circle felt as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because, and then if everybody's in tune with that, then everybody begins to feel the healing effect of that.
Yeah. Well, this is perfect because I had not yet gotten to Karen's question in the chat, which is the masculine and feminine theme a new one for you? Or is it something that has been evolving for you and you'll be presenting your latest thoughts at the conference? As she says, I know my own work evolves. So is this newer, or is this something you've been working with for a long time? Or
it's not newer. It's actually something that we wrote about somewhat in our book in the final chapters about coming into contact with your own soul nature. And what we've been working on is the idea that that within us it's more the idea of the divine masculine and the divine feminine within ourselves that we've come to with regard to looking at constellations. So we can work with our father and our father's lineage all the way back. We can work with our mother and our mother's lineage all the way back. But we may also have split off some of the parts of ourselves. Speaking of gender earlier, we were talking about fluidity. Many of us in certain age groups had no opportunity for gender fluidity. So we're not really talking about sex or gender fluidity, but a wideness of being. Mm-hmm. If I can hold that I have a lot of masculine, dynamic, electric energy, yang energy, but I also am embodied in a female body, and I also am nurturing, and I'm kind, and I'm caring, and I have all of these things. So if I am able to name these fully, name them and hold them for myself, I feel much more whole. I feel much more connected to myself. And so our work comes down to these ideas of this external masculine and feminine coming into embodied within. And then what we've noticed is that as we become more embodied within of holding both, as any non-dual teacher will teach you, we become one with ourselves, we become one with the divine, we become one with all, that there is no separation. So it's kind of a spiritual teaching through the lens of constellations. Right. Does that make sense to Karen, is it, that asked that question?
Yeah.
Oh, Karen. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Karen, did that help you?
Yeah, the Karen.
Okay, Karen.
Well, this is, I hope it's a good segue, Jamy, because I understand that you have a meditation that you'd like to share with us. I don't know if it's on this or a different topic, but it feels like a good time to pause and do a bit of work with you.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Well, what I usually do in each class that we offer is I offer a different meditation each time we meet, and it's mostly for us to get in tune. So even though this isn't directly about the soul or what we were talking about, it was my idea that we would all be preparing for the conference, and that we're all bringing our ancestors with us to the conference, and that this is really something that that I feel that we can all feel inside ourselves. So what I'd like to ask is that we close our eyes and just get ourselves into a comfortable position. It'll just be just a few moments. And so if my words don't work for you, I want to be sure that you know you're welcome to just let whatever your own mind conjures to be able to accept that and allow that to be. So just imagine a silver strand of awareness, and that strand is dropping down from the center of your brain as you've been listening and thinking and trying to take in our talk here today. So imagine this golden and silver strand is dropping down into the center of your heart space. And your heart space is located in your physical body, and it's bordered by your rib cage and just below your collarbones and just above your diaphragm and just in front of your spinal vertebrae. It's your thoracic cavity. But we could imagine that this place inside our own physical body is also called the cave of the heart, or the heart space, the heart fire, the light fire. It's called many different things by many people, but if we allow ourselves to come down into the center of our heart, we can imagine there is a beautiful room. And this room can be an ancient one made of stone walls. It can be an open tented room with billowing, curtained walls. It can be an ancient wooded hut. Whatever you would like to have your heart look like, the cave of your heart, you can create it just the way that you want to. But inside this beautiful heart space, this room of your heart, is a table. A beautiful, ancient, and I mean ancient, table of your ancestors. So it may be made of stone, it may be made of wood, it may be a cloth laid down upon a sandy floor or sandy desert area. It may be just of pine. But just let yourself imagine that deep within your own heart space, inside the room of your heart, is your own ancestors' table. A place where they're always welcome, every ancestor that you've had back since the beginning of time. And so I invite you to imagine now that there may be chairs around the table, perhaps just pillows on a floor, perhaps benches or rotten old stumps of wood that have come in from the outside wooded areas so all of the members can sit well inside a teepee. Whatever you have imagined, allow these chairs to magically appear so that each of your ancestors has a place to sit or perhaps stand. And so you find your own place now, and you take your seat at your own ancestors' table. You are the one who'll call them in. And so we can do this together aloud, or you can certainly do this with our microphones muted, either way. But we'll begin with your father, and we'll call him. We'll whisper his names together into the field so he will hear us and come to your table within. So together we'll whisper our father's names.
Edward Henry Faust.
And you allow the image of your father, if he's passed, to come, the soul image, the energy body of your father. Or if he's still alive, you may have him come and be seated just as he is today. And then we call now his parents, your grandparents, your father's mother and her name, if you know it, your father's mother's name, Madeline Louise Winters.
Joy Weldon Faust.
And now your father's father's name, Arthur Edward
Edward
Williams.
Henry.
And you asked the two of them, your grandparents, your father's parents, to come and sit at the table near you. And now you ask for your mother, your father's mother's mother and father, your paternal great-grandparents. And even if you didn't know their names, we can call them as great-grandmother, great-grandfather, great-grandmother, great-grandfather.
Great-grandmother, great-grandfather.
And now your father's parents, we invite them to come and be here with us. Your other set of great-grandparents. And you can ask them to take their seats here at the table. And now, if you let yourself go beyond space and time and recall the countries of origin that the clans and tribes have come from which you have originated on your father's side, you can ask them to appear for you, perhaps in their local garb, perhaps wearing something that reminds you of the places that they have come from. And you ask them to come and sit with you. And even if you didn't know them, that doesn't matter. You know the energy. And you ask them to be here with us as your ancestors. And so now you might ask that one or two or three ancestor on your father's side come to you today, perhaps for the first time, to join you at the table inside the cave of your own heart. And now together we take a very deep and long and slow breath. And we turn our awareness to our mother's lineage. And we ask that our mothers come and be here with us inside the cave of our heart and have her seat at the ancestors' table. And whether she's alive or she has passed, you can invite her energy to be here as she is right now, or as she may appear to you in soul and energy consciousness. So we call her name aloud now. Joan Margaret McNeil Williams Terrio. We ask her to be here with us. And we ask her to take her seat near us, by us. And then we call her father, your mother's father, to be here. James Mark McNeil.
William Weldon.
And now your mother's mother, Anastasia McDonald.
Page. Yeah.
And we ask them to come and sit with us here inside the cave of our own hearts at our beautiful table. And we call upon now our grandparents and great-grandparents, and we ask that our mother's parents come and be here. Your first set of maternal great-grandparents. You may not know their names, but perhaps just their surnames. McDonald, Neil. And now your mother's father's parents, your other set of great-grandparents, calling their names, McNeil, McDonald, and we call them in.
Weldon, Page.
And we ask them to sit with us. Great-grandfather, great-grandmother, be here with me. Sit at my table. I welcome you. And then we let ourselves roll back outside of space and time and remember the clans and tribes and ancient families that we've come from back in countries of origin. And we ask those beings, those ancestors, to show themselves to us. Maybe there's just one in ancient robes or furs. Perhaps there's more than that, but we invite them to come and be here with us, to sit at our table. Perhaps we need to wake them up like Rumpelstiltskin did. We may have to wake them up to be here with us, to remember that we're inviting them in to be here with us and seated. at our beautiful ancestors' table. And so we let ourselves look around and gain strength from this. We gain strength and we honor them each by bowing our heads. And thanks for sending this gift of life onto us so that we may be here now in this moment at this time. And so we'll take 3 long and slow deep breaths. And on our final exhale, we'll slowly open our eyes together.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I know, I always cry.
At your own meditation, that's great.
Well, they come.
So, is there anyone here who would like to share an experience, a brief experience that doesn't feel, too private? It feels good to share it. Sometimes these things don't want to be shared. You keep them in your heart. But if there's something you want to share or a question that arises from this, you can either just raise your hand or unmute yourself and speak. Or if you're quiet, you can type into the chat. Yes, Alexandra, go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you for the meditation. It was really nice. And I think it was a little bit difficult to see one-on-one. I did started seeing the lineage. My image was more like a temple of light, I think.
Beautiful.
Yeah, more than earth. But what was really nice and where I could really connect was to feel the energies of the field of my father's field and my mother's field. And I could tell that there was more like sunshine on one field on my mother's. It was lighter, softer, more like happy. And I think on my father's side, it was a little bit more cold, dark, like coming from colder places from Europe. I think it was, and my mother's also lineage also comes from Europe in some areas, also from Spain. Yeah, Europe. But it felt different. The energy, vibration, the colors, the expression felt different. But it was also very nice to. And then in the middle, I don't know, I started seeing like not only my direct biological family, but my teachers, friend groups that I belong to as part of my family system. And they were like in the middle, not on one side or the other, but in the middle, all together, So it felt really nice.
Good.
Thank
Yes,
you.
we call that our soul family.
Yes.
Yeah, there's the biological family and then our soul family.
Yeah.
Our teachers and things of that nature, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we hear espressos being made in the background, Alexandra.
Yes, I'm at a coffee place. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's very evocative.
Yes. Cars are passing on the back.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. It was good to see you.
Me too.
It's so, given what Alexandra said, it does sound like it's, everyone has their own experience of this, and the meditation itself can become kind of a platform for further exploration.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. This side feels bad. This side feels good. Whatever might arise. Yeah. Yeah. For me, the most moving bit was at the very beginning, just seeing them around this table and noticing there was a place for me.
Mm.
I know that's like Constellations 101, but there's something about re-embodying that and that little bit of surprise when you remember it. So thank you for that. That was nice for me. So I want to take a few minutes here and just connect in with some of the other people who are connected with the conference, and see, again, keep on holding on to your questions, your comments, and we'll see if we can fit in one or two more. But we do have one presenter here. Well, we have several presenters here, but Kimberly is a presenter. Would you just say a sentence about your workshop so you can, whet our appetite for it?
Well, it's evolving. Every day it's evolving. I think I call it body oppression. It's evolving. That's all I can say. I don't know if I can whet your appetite. I'm still letting it come through, but it's letting all of us experience our shared legacy of being embodied, and all of the stuff that goes with it. Essentially, I don't know if that helps, but I'm on an individual basis with my own work.
Every time you talk about this workshop, I get more and more intrigued. Kimberly's up to something. I just need to tell everybody here. Kimberly's up to something. And
I'm not up to something. The ancestors are up to something, which is why I'm always like, I'm the last to know. Okay?
Yes, usually that's true.
I'm always the last to know. And it's always a shock, and not a shock, but it's always interesting to me what wants to be dealt with. And the fact that I'm here in a Black body at this moment, in this country, at this time on the planet, is no accident. So there's just, my lineage is rich. It's really important. And it's also really important for me to be super respectful of the way that I allow my lineage to help facilitate the work that I do. I'm just really aware we all signed up for it. And I am just the tip of the iceberg that eyes can see. That's all I am. So, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. And the right people will be there because, my ancestors are talking to your ancestors, and they're having lunch, and they're deciding who's supposed to be in the room. And so I had to make stuff up. I have no idea what's going to happen. It's going to be incredible. But
I look forward to it.
Okay.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Great. Really great.
I'm hoping that my life does not make it impossible for me to go. Yours is as high on my list of ones to get to. I'm very intrigued. I'm doing a nature constellations workshop. Part of what I'm up to in that workshop is just helping people work in that space. But the other thing, the bridging the divide piece, is what I've noticed frequently is, as you two were saying, Jamy and Peter, to move out of that fixing space. And when we do constellations in nature, the energy we can borrow from nature is that accepting quality. No one goes to therapy after the tree falls, right? And so there's a way in which the change is less about fixing things, and it's more about, the first order of love, the honoring what is, and being able to be in more self-rapport with oneself and whatever one's fate is. And so and also receiving all of the assistance of nature, which it likes to assist us with. Also, given that Virginia Beach is well known as being one of the centers of nuisance flooding in the United States, which is a euphemism for climate change, I do think that's going to be part of what we're going to take a look at as well, and with Houston having happened. So all in an hour and a half, right, Kimberly? We're going to do this all in an hour and a half. Karen, say a word about yours, please.
Yes, well, I have the topic of introducing family and systemic constellations to your corner of the universe. And so where I am now, and yes, I evolve, as we all are saying we do, is, I'm remembering a comment that I heard from a colleague saying the trees are on fire. Lately, I've been thinking, and a lot of land is underwater too. But there's so much going on in our world, in our country, in our communities. And I'm really interested in how to gently, easily bring constellations to our own communities, wherever we live. And how to do that in an engaging, heartfelt way, not some big, splashy thing, but just letting people know there are other ways, and there are other ways that are so helpful and so good and so clear and so deep. And I'm about experiencing that and helping other people experience that, and also having other people share with us how they do it in their own communities.
Nice, nice. Thank you. Thank you. Enculturation, how it can resonate where you are. Beautiful. And then Karen, can you please continue? I'm going to share a screen with some details about the upcoming conference for anyone here who is still on the fence, or let's just share some of those details. I will share the screen now, and then we'll come back to Jamy and Peter. And I'm not finding it. Come on, share screen. There it is.
Yes. And this is also for, if you're already coming to the conference, to let friends and colleagues and other interested people know. We are having a really amazing conference that I will tell you grows amazing every day. I am on the steering committee, so I'm one of several people working and organizing this conference this year. And a lot is happening, and it will be very rich and very deep. And it is October 5th to 8th in Virginia Beach. There's also a pre-conference. There's also 1- and 2-day registrations available for one reason you or people you know can't come for the whole time. Lots of different opportunities to join us for as how long as you are able. And regarding rooms, if you are registered for the conference but don't have your room yet, you will get the discount if you register with the Founders Inn, the hotel, by Monday. So just important things to know, to save a little money, to make sure that you get involved, to bring your friends. We're really looking forward to this conference.
Get a roommate, save. It becomes a really good deal when you have a roommate.
It does.
And then we're going to be doing one more of these gatherings. Cecilio Rugojo, he's fabulous. I did work with him in Zagreb last year. He's so much fun. He's from Spain, and he's more organizational constellations. He's got a different style, but that's what I love about constellations. A lot of different variation within the umbrella can coexist. And he's just a blast. He's very sharp. He's very fun. He's super sweet. That's on Thursday, September 14th. Slightly different time because he's in Europe. So we needed to make it work for him. So please note those times. And again, RSVP to me if you would like to join that. I hope you will. He's going to be fun. He made me laugh a lot in Zagreb. So those are the details. Any last questions or shares for Jamy and Peter, or the two of you, something else you'd like to share that seems important that you'd like to leave the group with?
Well, we'd like to let people know about our book that I have a copy of it right here. It's called The Constellation Approach, Finding Peace Through Your Family Lineage. It's kind of a textbook. But many of you probably have seen it or have it, especially those who are students, and Karen and Leslie. But this is a kind of a culmination of all of our work and the approach that we work with, which is the blending of energy medicine, the journey of the soul and soul consciousness, and family constellation. So we're really just happy that we've devoted ourselves, we've devoted our lives to this work. We've spent 3 years writing that book. We just, as Peter mentioned earlier, we just purchased a building last year in order to house family constellations. We actually have the word family constellations on our sign outside, along with other things. I think that even that's a coup. It's great. And we just created a new website called Faust Family Constellations, and we continue to create, and we're just really, really devoted, so devoted to family constellations and bringing peace to our families and supporting world peace by helping one family at a time. And that's our mission.
Thank you very much. Just a little testimonial about the book. For those of you who, like me, have library book shelves full of constellation books, and you're thinking, well, do I really need another one? I want you to know that this book it goes into a different territory. It does have the basics in there, but it also has their approach, which they describe some today. And so it will be a genuine addition to your library. And so I encourage you in that regard. Also, I forgot to mention, and it's really, really important, Jamy is doing her constellation duty these days by being on the board, the brand new board for the North American Systemic Constellations, which is the new nonprofit umbrella organization for the conferences, and is holding the vision for a North American community that can include the conferences, but even be larger than that and have some sustainability. Jamy, do you want to say a word or two about that?
Just that it's been amazing to be on the board, to meet people from Canada and from all over the world. We're trying to bring together people with diverse backgrounds, and so we all come in with lots of ideas and ways of looking at things. And it's exciting to be behind the scenes and trying to create this amazing new way for everybody to find out about constellations. I know that we're still growing, so a lot of people don't know about us yet, but we hope we're going to spread the word through these conferences and keep going. And I just, it's been a good experience. As Karen knows and as Leslie knows, it's a lot of work. And again, another place that I feel very devoted to be. So yes to that.
Just to let everyone know that the conference and the board at this point in time are all volunteer events. People put a lot of time and energy into that. And part of the vision of setting up this North American Systemic Constellations, or NASC, as we're all getting used to saying, is about making a more sustainable effort, so that, you know, people don't have to give their firstborn children to make a conference happen. We can just have something that rolls along with more ordinary contributions from everybody. So thank you for being part of that, Jamy. And I want to say thank you to both of you. Any last words as we're about to sign off here from anybody else? Any last thing, Jamy or Peter, you'd like to say to us?
I'd like to say thank you, Leslie, for doing this. And thank you, everybody who's on the call, and your willingness to take an hour out of your time to be involved and to ask and to just be part of this, because it's just thank you. Thank you. We're all in this together.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you, everybody. And thank you to all of you who are watching the end of this video recording at some point later on, because we will be sending it out as a recording to people as well. So thank you for doing that. Okay, well, blessings to everybody wherever you are in the world. Have a wonderful day. And Jamy and Peter, thank you so much for your time today and for the work that you do. And those of us who are going to the conference, we'll all see you in a month.
Yes, you'll see us in a month. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank
Jessica.
you.
Bye, Martina. Bye.
You're all unmuted, so you can verbally say goodbye.
Bye. Goodbye.
Oh, goodbye.
Bye, Patricia.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.